Hi, this is Randall Schwartz, host of Floss Weekly. This week, Gareth Greenaway joins me. We're going to talk about this Dropbox equivalent software called Seafile. That's C with an S-E-A, not a C. You're not going to want to miss this, so stay tuned.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Floss Weekly is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Floss Weekly with Randall Schwartz and Gareth Greenaway. Episode 290, recorded April 16th, 2014. Seafile. It's time for Floss Weekly, the show about free, libre, open source software. I am your host, Randall Schwartz, Merlin at Stonehenge.com, bringing you as often as I can, trying to make it weekly. Missed a few the last couple of weeks, but we're getting back on schedule here. The movers, the shakers, the big projects, the little projects, projects you may be using every day and not aware of it, projects you may never ever heard of, but might be something cool for you to check out. I'm just freshly back from Turkey. If you're looking at the video, you may notice something a little unusual about my face, but let's skip over that for a second and go ahead and introduce our co-host, Gareth Greenaway. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Randall. Glad to be back.
Very cool, very cool. And where are you speaking to us from?
Oh, my usual spot, Thousand Oaks, California.
Very cool. And for the people who notice also in the video that I'm not in the Santa Monica location, I am in fact back in my apartment in Portland, having just returned from Turkey. And just so you don't, I'm not freaking people out while they're watching the video and they're saying, yes, there are a couple of blotches on my forehead. It turns out that I had a wrestling match with one of my bags while I was trying to get on the plane Sunday morning, and I knocked myself down and fell on the rug. So I've got a kind of a nice little scar that I'm going to have for a while that's getting all cleaned up. But more about Turkey at the end of the show. I want to instead talk about this show and what we're doing today. We've got a project on called Seafile, which bills itself as a next-generation open-source cloud storage. So think, for example, of something like Dropbox, but where you can manage the whole system if you want to keep Dropbox's little mitts off of it from you. You can drop it up in Amazon S3 and a bunch of other places. Or there's also a hosted solution for it at reasonably affordable rates, although I can't find the rates anywhere. So first gigabyte's free, though. I guess that's always the sample one to get you in there. We'll talk more to our guest. Our guest is Jonathan Shu. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. We'll have to get that straightened out if that's wrong. What do you know about this so far, Gareth?
Other than what I've read briefly on the website, I don't know too much. One of the things that I did notice, as you said, it's a Dropbox-like application, but it allows you to host it yourself, which I know is, as a lot of people that use Dropbox actively have wanted for a few years.
Yeah, and we've had people on the show. I think OwnCloud was on a while back, or maybe we haven't had them on yet. There's just been a request. You know, after 290 shows, it's all starting to kind of blur together about who I've actually had on the show anymore. So, well, without further ado, let's go ahead and bring on Jonathan Shu. Welcome to the show.
Hi, 你好. My name is Jonathan Xu. I'm greeting to you in Chinese, 你好. It means hello. So let's begin. Seafile is an open source cloud storage. It is like Dropbox, you are right. But Seafile has its own unique features. First of all, it's open source. You can deploy your own instance on your own server. This really protects your privacy. And second, Seafile has better file sharing features. In Seafile, you can create a group, and you can put a few person into a group, and then you can share any file within the group. This is really convenient for companies, especially for companies. And the third is Seafile has a really cool feature. It is called client-side encryption. That means your data is encrypted with your own password before leaving your machine. Even the server's admin can't see your encrypted file. That's a really strong privacy protection.
Absolutely. And just so we don't, I don't leave this part of it out, where are you speaking to us from?
Oh, I'm now in Beijing, China.
I think
I'm
you're
from
our first
China.
Chinese. Yeah, I think you're our first guest actually speaking to us from China. So I just wanted to congratulate you on having broken through one more continent or country or whatever. So thank you. How did Seafile get started, and what problem were you trying to solve at that point?
The problem is quite obvious. In the recent years, cloud storage like Dropbox or Google Drive has becoming very popular, and there is always a privacy concern about those services, and this also concerns our development team. So we decided to start to work on the open source cloud storage project to protect our own privacy. And it's also cheaper for us to store our data on our own server. So we started the Seafile project.
So who all's involved with that? Are you like the head shepherd of the whole thing, and then you have some other people helping you out with commits?
Yeah, we have about 8 people in our team, mostly in engineering. They are mostly developers.
Okay, so what does this look like to me when I'm using it? So I install it. So I have a Mac, if that makes any difference. So I would install something on my Mac, and then I would then install something on the server. What are the requirements for the server? Does it have to be Linux? Does it have to be can I have a Windows server instead? What do we need for that kind of the server side?
Now we support Windows and Linux and even Raspberry Pi. You can use a very cheap RPi to install Seafile on it, and then you roll your own Dropbox. Very easy. And actually, many of our users really like to install Seafile on Raspberry Pi because Seafile has very low requirement for hardware. It runs really fast on RPi.
Wow, that seems unusual because if you're using strong encryption, I would presume that the Pi is not all that fast for that stuff.
Hello?
Yeah, I was just saying I would presume that for the Pi, you're using strong encryption, so I would presume the Pi is not fast enough to do all that. But you're saying it works fine?
The encryption is done on your Mac. It's not done on the Pi.
Oh, that's how you can get away with that. Okay, that makes a lot more sense then.
Yeah, that's the point. That's the point. That's the point.
So, so I would build, or of course, whatever server I have has to be accessible from all the clients I would want to have. So it either needs to have a public IP address, or if I'm doing this for an intranet, I could have it as one of my intranet published addresses, right?
Yes, you can use dynamic DNS. Many people use dynamic DNS to allow outside access to a Pi.
And so is the interface similar to what I'm getting, say, with Dropbox, where there's like a web interface that I can upload and download files, and also like a file or a directory that's automatically synced?
Yes, both of them are supported. We have a file syncing client. The client runs on Windows, Linux, Mac, and we also have a web interface, and we also have iOS and Android client, everything you can imagine.
Cool. And also so even an iOS client, so I could actually have stuff on my iPhone. What does it have access to, like the photos on my iPhone, so I could actually sync all my photos upward?
Yes, you can sync your photos up to your own server.
That's pretty cool. I install a server, and I basically install clients and everything that fits. But I understand you also have a hosted service as well. Can you describe that a little bit?
Oh, the hosted service is deployed on Amazon AWS, and It's currently running on the East Coast, and I think some people are using our public service too. But our main purpose is to provide a Dropbox alternative that you can install on your private server. That's our main purpose.
Okay, and again, let's talk a little bit more about the requirements of that server. So it needs to run like a database. Does it need to have WebDAV and things like that, like running Apache or Nginx or something?
In the most basic installation, you don't need to run Apache or Nginx, and you don't even need to run MySQL, because everything is packaged into an all-in-one package. By default we use SQLite for database, and we use GUnicorn, Python, a web server written in Python. So everything can be up and running after a few steps of setup. That's really easy, and it doesn't cost money for the hardware.
So if I want to get started right now, like I'm listening to this and I think like, wow, this sounds like something that would be useful for me. What's the process for getting started? What do I need to, is there like an installer? Is there a download? What do I do? What's the process?
On the server, we have a tar.gzip package. You download the package and untie it, and then run a setup script, and then run two script to start the service, and then you are okay. You can access the service log.
Okay, so once I've run that, I assume it's like the standard Python setup script?
No, in Seafile we have two parts of code. The storage layer is written in C language, and the web access layer is written in Python.
I see.
So we don't follow the standard Debian or Fedora installation procedure. We provide a package for you to easily install it.
Okay, so once I've got the server in place and I've got it running, and I've got my client running, does it function in a similar function to Dropbox? Like if I drop a file on my client, it kind of syncs in the background to the server?
Yes, but in Seafile we have a concept of a library. Basically, every library is like an independent Dropbox folder. Every library is like a Dropbox folder. You first need to create a library, and then you sync the library with your desktop, and then anything you put in that local folder will be synced to your server.
Okay,
it's
cool.
Basically like Dropbox, but you need to set up the sync.
Okay, so if I'm set up with Seafile and I've uploaded a bunch of files and I go to change an individual file, like one of the libraries, if I change a specific file, or if I change a whole library, is it uploading the entire file each and every time, like after I've made changes, or is it just uploading the delta?
Yeah, I get it. We have delta upload. For bigger files, for example, a few megabytes, we only upload the portion you change, not the whole file, not the entire file. So that's a little bit faster.
Very cool. So when we were, initially started talking, you had said that Seafile has a concept of user management. So like you can give different users access to different portions of your Seafile store. Can you speak a bit about that?
First of all, you can share an entire library to a user or to a group. And in the second level, you can also share a subfolder inside the library to a person or to a group. And you can also share any individual file or folder. You can create a link, and the other user don't need to register to access the file. That's basically how sharing works.
If I've created my my Seafile location, and I have some friends that I want to give access to certain files that I've created, what is the process for giving those users, giving those friends of mine accounts? Is there like a user management system that I have access to?
Yeah, as an admin, as a system admin, you can add your friends as a user into the system. Or you can open the registration process and allow them to freely register. It's up to you.
So additional people, can additional people be made as administrators so that they can add groups and users and subgroups?
Yes. Actually, every user can create groups. The groups can be created by any user, and any user can add his friends into the group.
So any user that I give access to, like my Seafile setup, is automatically an administrator user?
Oh no. I mean, in Seafile, a group is not only it can create it by a normal user, not only the super user.
I see. So if I give access to some friends of mine, they in turn can give access to friends of theirs?
I don't get your question.
I'm just wondering, I'm just trying to understand the level of access that people have.
Okay. For example, you have set up your Seafile, and you created a group, and then you add a few friends into your group. Then you are the admin of that group, and you are also the admin of the whole system. But your friends is not the admin of the group. Neither, and they are also not the admin of the whole system.
Is it possible to delegate? Go ahead, sorry.
They can only access what you share to them.
Is it possible to have multiple administrators then who can all create groups?
Yes, there can be multiple admin.
Okay.
But I have said normal user, not only the super user can create group. Every user can create a group.
Okay, and probably how this would more likely be handled is instead of having one central installation for Seafile, if it did want to be sort of, fiefdoms, they would probably just install their own version of Seafile and move over somewhere else. I like the idea, though, that you have, with very little administration. I mean, SQLite and Python sounds like the only real requirements. That and some sort of web dev, I guess. So either Nginx or Apache or something, so that you can get access. Oh wait, no. You said is Python doing the web dev?
Yes, Python. We write a web dev service in Python.
So that's really minimal install then. That's pretty amazing.
Yes, and we also support a more advanced setup. You can use Apache or Nginx or MySQL if you want more performance.
And would that also make it possible then to scale a little more likely? I mean, it's SQLite's great, but you're locking the entire file every time somebody makes a change.
Yeah,
And and it only works on one system. It doesn't scale in terms of having like multiple servers or things like that. So does the interface change if I change it to something that uses something more advanced like MySQL or real Apache and stuff, or does it look the same to me as a user?
Yes, it looks the same for the users, for the end user.
And is it hard to migrate if I wanted to go start, just try to drop something right now and just try it out a little bit and then go, oh, well, we really want to deploy this now, so I want to hook up MySQL.
No, it's not very hard. We have a complete set of scripts to help you migrate from SQLite to MySQL.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit more about the security aspect of the thing. So we talked a few minutes ago about the fact that it's all client-side encryption. What does that mean for me as a user to know that that nobody on the server can get to the files?
That's especially interesting when you are using a public service, such as our public service. Many users choose our public service because we provide client-side encryption.
And how does that work in terms of being able to get to it in the browser? It sounds like you have to be able to decode something server side to send the file down.
That's the cool part. That's the cool part.
Talk about that.
Yeah, on the web browser, we use JS to decode and encode the data, decrypt and encrypt the data. And all the data you upload from the browser is also encrypted on the browser, not on the server.
Okay, that's pretty spectacular. I don't think Dropbox does that. I think they actually send the files up over HTTPS and then they encrypt it at their end.
Yes. They can actually, Dropbox can see all your files contents if they want to.
Wow. And I know that they can do that because part of the contention these days is that, of course, law enforcement can provide subpoenas and stuff on that sort of stuff. So what would you say as an administrator of a Seafile setup then if some law enforcement guy came along and said, I need to get access to this guy's files? I guess you'd say that there's just no way, right?
Yes. That may not be very very good for companies, right? So in companies, you can require the users not to use the client-side encryption feature.
Right. I was going to say, like, if this is for a team of people, and we want to make sure. I mean, because it sounds like the local password would only be on my laptop. You want to be able to get to the data if I disappear. Sounds like this. So you can actually turn off that local encryption as well. It's one of the options when you get an installation.
No, the local encryption is not controlled by the server. It's controlled by the client only. So the only way to disable it is to ask the user not to use it.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense then. And again, for the encryption side, I'm familiar with similar products like Jada Cloud and what's the other one I use? I have 15 different cloud things installed on my laptop. It's actually funny. I watch in the background. The background of my system is all the time looking for files to send to one of those 15 cloud services. I'm using up bandwidth all the time for just sending the stuff back and forth. What's the one I'm thinking of? Walla, the one that's based in. That's also claims to be client-side encryption. Is access to do that. So, how would you contrast yourself in terms of encryption with things like Jada Cloud or Walla?
I think we are quite similar in terms of client-side encryption. And I think the algorithm is also very similar.
Mm-hmm.
I had a look at them. Hello, Uala.
Mm-hmm. The synchronization on Jota Cloud, which is the one is now my primary sending stuff back and forth, is amazingly quick. I don't understand how it does it. It's like the moment I change a file on one of my attached machines, within a few seconds it says, okay, uploading that one. And then I go over to the other server, and all of a sudden it's downloaded already. So like within mere seconds. Is Seafile at that level of speed, or is it like polling every minute to see if there's files that have been changed?
Yes, Seafile is very famous for its performance, even for large files and large folders. And actually, compared to OnCloud, many OnCloud users switch to Seafile because Seafile has better performance.
I might look into this then, just for that, because I'm always amazed by what's going on. So that would also then require me to look at your hosted service. And I noticed it says 1 gigabyte is included, but I was looking for pricing. I couldn't find anything to say how to get more than 1 gigabyte.
There should be a web page you can buy more storage and upgrade your plan and etc. Can't you see it?
No, I was poking around. I didn't actually sign up for anything, but I just wanted to. Is it only after you've signed up that you get to a page that looks like that?
Yes.
Yes, okay. That's why. And are your prices comparable to Dropbox, or are they cheaper?
Actually, cheaper. For personal use, it's actually cheaper. And we are going to provide a team account similar to box.com. That you can in there you can create a team account for your organization, and you can add the user into the organization, and then it just looks like a private server on the cloud, but that private server is hosted by us. Conceptually, that's similar.
Okay. Also, with sync, there's always the issue of two people changing the same file at the same time. How do you resolve that?
Yeah, that's a very tricky problem. We handle this similar to Dropbox. When two people are changing the same file, the file just stops syncing when two people are updating it in at the same time. And after one person has finished editing the file, and the other person's version will be synced to this person's computer. And we will create a conflict file for this case.
Okay, so then I could see his version of the file, and I could do the merge myself if that works.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. And what about offline use, in the sense that, okay, my laptop has got pretty good connectivity most of the time, but sometimes I'm at 30,000 feet or on a cruise ship, and I wouldn't necessarily be online while I'm changing my files. First off, do I have a local copy of everything in my sync folder already?
Yeah.
Okay, so I could actually be changing the files. And what happens then when I reconnect back to the net to connect back to my server?
It will be synced to the server and the other clients.
Okay, and again, the same merge conflict might happen if somebody else changed something else while they were offline, perhaps?
Yes.
And, okay, well, this sounds pretty cool. Actually, that sounds a lot like what Jota Cloud does for me already. But one of the things that Jota Cloud does well, I'm sorry to keep comparing you to something that I've been using frequently because
no problem.
I really like them. But one of the things that Jota Cloud does well that I know that, what's Microsoft's latest thing? It was Sky something. Now it's
SkyDrive.
Yeah, but it's a new name now. Yeah, OneDrive or something like that. One of the things that fails on Voila and OneDrive, and I think even on Dropbox, is that if the file is only partially transferred, like here's a Delta that needs to be shipped, if the file is only partially transferred, the next time I connect, it starts over transmitting that. Are you able to like handle a disconnect in the middle of shipping a Delta and not have to retransmit the Delta?
Yes, we can handle this. We
That's
actually
awesome.
split. We actually split a file into smaller blocks, and if some blocks has been on the server, we don't need to transfer those blocks anymore.
So it's really bandwidth sensitive in the sense that it will only ship really the things it needs to do. The Delta already figures out how little to ship, and then you actually break the Delta into pieces. Well, that's
yes,
pretty incredible. How hard was that to get working?
Yeah, that code is really tricky. We use some fancy deduplication algorithms to do that.
Cool. And as this has progressed, it looks like you're just did a 3.0 release. So what has been driving the direction of where you're heading with this? Obviously, you're using it yourself, but do you also have a user base that's also telling you,
yes,
I need this feature, I need that to happen?
Yes, we have a very active community, user community. You can go to our Google Group mailing list. On that mailing list, many users are proposing new features every day or reporting problems every day. Part of our direction is determined by the user's demand, and we also continuously improving our architecture and algorithms to make Seafile faster, more reliable, and better and better.
And I have to ask this, but if you can't answer it, just tell me you can't answer it. But given that you're in China, is there any restrictions on the strength of the encryption that you can use?
Oh no, we can use ISA, and I think any encryption algorithm, there is low restriction on it.
Well, I find that surprising. I mean, it's I have this view that you're behind the great firewall of China, so I have this view that that they're wanting also to be able to intercept some of the messages at some level of thing. Maybe just because I'm from the USA and I now know about the NSA and it's all messy for us. So maybe you actually have it better than we do now. I don't know. Could be a little strange. Yeah. Could be a little strange, right? So so we've got so what does the development look like? You have a group of developers. Do you work all independently, or do you have like a IRC chat and chat back and forth about different features you want to take? Do you have a bug tracking system that you then can assign yourself a bug and work on something, or how does that flow work?
We mostly use GitHub for code hosting and issue checking, and also our wiki, our documentation are also on GitHub too. We really rely on GitHub heavily.
Okay. And so that means also there's a problem tracker there, obviously, with GitHub. And so if I had a feature request, I could drop that in that same problem tracker.
Yes, you can.
Okay. Do most people bring their own solutions, or do most people just have requests and then you guys have to figure out how to solve it?
Most of the time, people just post a feature request, and if the feature is very good and very appealing, and then we will make it priority. And for other features, we will mostly implement it when we have time.
Okay, that sounds good. So that, and then you can work on prioritizing the stuff as people can work that out. And you said it's mostly in Python. How did you choose Python?
No, actually, it's half in C and half in Python. I mean the low level things, the fancy storage things are all written in C. C is the core part, is the core system. And Python is for web interface, web dev, and some scripting. Python is like a wrapper around the core system. You know? Do you get it?
Yeah.
And we choose Python because we think basically it's because we are more familiar with Python. And Python is a really strong programming language.
So
And that's it.
what new exciting features are kind of on the roadmap for Seafile in the near future?
In the near future, we are the most important part is that we are going to further improve our performance and make it much faster, especially for very large folders with hundreds of thousands of files. And the second part is we are going to add more collaboration features, such as task list. You can create a task list, to-do list in a group. This is very useful for collaboration, and we are going to add more collaboration features.
Very cool. What license is Seafile currently released under?
Currently, we have two parts. The code written in C is released under GPL, and Python code are all released under Apache.
What's the difference between, like, the reason for the different licensing for the different parts?
Yeah, the reason that we use GPL for the C code because we borrow some code from Git. Actually, we use a similar data model to Git. We have all the commits and blobs. We have all similar concepts to Git. So we borrow some code from Git, and Git is released in GPL. So we have to release the code in GPL. But in the future, we are also planning to split the license into two parts for the C code. In the client, because we use the Git code, so we still keep it in GPL. But for the server, we don't use Git. We don't use Git source code. So we are going to change it in. We are planning to change it to Apache.
Okay. Currently, if I understand it right, there are two different versions. There's a community edition and like a business edition. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
What are the major differences between those two editions?
In the business edition, we have a file search feature on the server, and we also support high availability and clustering on the server side. And we are also going to add a real-time backup service on the server side to the business edition. The rationale for the business edition is we don't want the business edition to lock your data. That means even, for example, if you buy our business edition and then after a year, you don't want to use it anymore, then you can freely switch back to the community edition and all your data should be accessible, still accessible. but you don't have search and you don't have HA, but your data is still accessible. That's the
Very
rationale.
cool. Now, a lot of those features, like the search on the server or the other ones that you mentioned, are those features that will eventually make their way back into the community edition, or are they only business edition features?
We currently don't have plan to move all the features in the business edition into community edition, but some features have already been moved into the community edition. For example, the web dev feature is originally in the business edition, and we find that there are so many users want to use that, then we move it into the community edition. But we allow a company, so we still list some business model. That's
Right,
it.
understood. So what does fund the development of this? Is it strictly the business licensing, or is it like also people paying for the hosted solutions as well?
Actually, we have two. We have both two. You see, we have a public cloud service. It's like a hosted solution, and we are also selling the business edition.
Oops, sorry about that. Was muted for a second. Yeah, no, very cool. So what would you say the major divide is? Like, are more people using the at this point the community edition versus the business edition, or is it kind of split evenly?
Oh, there are many more people using the community edition than the business edition. That's what we expected, what we expect, because the purpose we start Seafile project is to protect people's privacy, so it should be affordable for most people to use Seafile. But for some bigger companies and bigger organizations, they have more requirements, they have more demands, so they can buy our business edition.
Very cool, very cool. Hey, we're almost out of time, and I just wanted to make sure that our audience is aware of everything you wanted them to be aware of. Is there any questions that we haven't asked yet that you're hoping we would have covered?
No, I think that's almost about what I want to share.
Very cool. And just to confirm, this is currently in production use. This is not something that you're just playing around with for now. It's people are really using this for real projects.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I mean, and you sound like you're using it internally anyway for your organization. So it's got to work, right?
Yes.
And also, I was curious, how much. So you've got the Python WebDAV and web service components. Are you using a framework on top of the Python, like Django or something?
Django. We are using Django.
Okay, cool. Because we've had them on the show before. Are you using other libraries, like any part of the syncing or the encryption or like the management of the system?
For encryption, we definitely use OpenSSL.
Okay.
And we are using a database library for C language. It's called libzdb.
Okay.
libzdb, and we are also using many other libraries. There is also glib. Glib is a library from GNOME project. We use it widely.
And you mentioned earlier that you're using client-side Git code. on my laptop, then am I maintaining the entire history of every change I've made, or are you like truncating the
No.
history there?
No, we just borrow some of the Git code, and we change the code, and actually we implement all the syncing and merging algorithm ourselves, so we don't keep full history on the client side. Actually, only the latest history, the latest one will be synced to the client. On the
Okay.
server, we also keep the full history.
So you probably just have a commit that doesn't have a parent, that we don't have to keep the parent data around.
We keep parent on the server, but for the client, it's already sufficient to get the latest commit. The client only need to get the latest commit.
Okay, well, that makes sense. Cool. Because I know a little bit about Git, and I'm always curious how people are using it. That's how was that decision made? Because you liked the things that Git had in it, and said, "Hey, this can actually help us, manage our blobs and things."
I think Git's version management model is very good, and we don't want to reinvent our own version management model. So
Sure.
we directly borrow the model and write most of the code, and it's just like we change the Git code to make it a file syncing tool, but the code base is very different from Git, and many algorithms has been changed.
Did you snapshot the Git source, or are you tracking the upstream and trying to reincorporate anything that changes upstream?
I think we just use a snapshot of the Git code.
Okay. But the problem with that,
Yes.
of course, is that if they discover an algorithm breakage, you probably won't necessarily notice it. So, but
Actually, we are now very different from Git. We don't follow Git's development.
Okay, very good. I have two more questions that I have to ask all my guests. This has been a wonderful conversation. If you've heard of my previous shows, you'll know what these two questions are. So what's your favorite text editor?
Emacs.
Yay, Emacs, finally. Finally, after all these BI people, yay. You made me happy there. Just a second. I'm not going to be happy at the next answer. I already know, though. What's your favorite scripting language?
Scripting language.
Yeah.
It's Python.
Yeah, of course. Right. Yeah, I wasn't going to be happy. I knew that already. I knew that one was coming. But thank you for the Emacs answer. I am happy now. I am very happy.
I think you are a pro guy.
I am a Perl guy. Yes, that's part of what I'm known for these days. So, and for the last 25 years. And I just also wanted to let you know that the chat room has been crazy about this thing. They've actually said, I'm going to try this thing out. So you've probably got some new converts here and people that are going to be checking it out. So thank you once again for coming on the show and staying up till midnight to be in this conversation. Thank you very much, Jonathan.
Thank you.
All right, that was Jonathan Shu talking to us from Beijing, China. What do you think, Gareth?
It looks, very exciting project. I'm always interested to see like people taking kind of the cloud and Dropbox-like model, but allowing you to use it and do what you want to do with it. And it's also exciting that they're using like parts of Git to do like the management of those the file tracking.
Well, I like the leverage there. You know, this is interesting. And again, I brought this up on many shows, which is that there's a being able to cannibalize somebody else's code means you don't have to reinvent the wheel completely. So, that's cool too. Although again, I was worried that they were actually maintaining my entire history of every change I made over on the client side, which is weird. But apparently, I cleared that one up. I'm gonna look at this. This is interesting. I have a client which we use Dropbox for, and the sync happens some of the time, and and there's no point in actually using Dropbox for this project. So it might be cool for me to switch over to something like this, which should be a little more private, and we could have larger data available. I already have a server I could run it on, so if it's just a matter of getting some Python code and an SQLite database, we've got a public IP, so it'll be really easy to just drop this in and make that work. Anything else before we move on?
Nope.
Okay, great. So upcoming guests, we still have a bunch of slots open on Q2, but I managed to fill one more since the last time we chatted. Actually, was it two more? No, it might be two more. We added, coming up next week, I believe it is Connections, which is open source education. Thought it'd be fun since I'm an educator, and I will be involved in that show as well. And I want to, oh, by the way, I want to thank my co-host for taking over while I was gone in Turkey. That was a nice show that they did while I was out there. The show after that is OSCON, something near and dear to my heart because I have been to almost every OSCON. I missed a couple while they were conflicting with something else I was doing. But we've got Simon St. Laurent from the O'Reilly staff coming on to talk about OSCON, talk about what's happening this year. And I, of course, will be at OSCON doing my usual sort of looking for interviews, looking for people to interview for FLOSS Weekly. I'm not speaking this year, though. I'm actually just flying in under the press radar, not the speaker radar. I couldn't think of anything to actually present at OSCON this year. That seems a little sad, but there it is. Right after that, JitMeet and Jitsi Video Bridge, which is essentially Jitsi for Google Hangout equivalent. So having a multiple person conversation with completely open source software. Looking forward to that because maybe we can actually use that for our upcoming FLOSS Weekly shows when we can't get Skype to work correctly. And Skype, I'm not trying to threaten you. Please don't cut out right now. With Skype, you're still doing fine for us. Really, we're never going to get rid of you. Don't worry about it. And then Digital Public Library of America, which is doing a meta index on, doing an index on all the metadata for all sorts of electronically readable media all over the U.S., maybe even around the world, but at least in the U.S., so that you can search in one place to say, give me pictures of Portland, Oregon, and it will tell you all the other hosted services like archive.org and other places that have that kind of information, or any library that's accessible with a public-facing thing. Just added to the list, Tonica, I think that's how you pronounce this, is a platform for social networks that scale well and have good authentication and an amenity, some word like that, where you don't know each other. Yes, right. You can't figure out whoever it is. Again, I'm continuing to schedule Q2. You can look at our spreadsheet that's linked from twit.tv/floss, which is the homepage for this show. There's a spreadsheet linked from there that talks about all the people I'm trying to schedule and all my open slots still. You can follow us at FLOSS Weekly on Google+, and also FLOSS Weekly on Twitter. We do have a live chat. We took a few questions from the chat room this time. That's at live.twit.tv. We normally tape this show 8:30 a.m. Pacific time on Wednesdays, so you can actually look in and see what happens ahead of the show, behind the show, and get all the ugly behind the scenes and stuff we've had to edit out, things like that. So check that out. You can follow me at Merlin, M-E-R-L-Y-N, on Twitter. But more likely, you'll see me post a lot of things on it's Randall L. Schwartz on Google+. I did just get back from Turkey. I want to spend about 30 seconds talking about that. I took 2,900 pictures. We went to something like 25 different digs and museums. The most, the best one that I went to was Göbekli Tepe, which has stuff from 9,000 BC, giant megaliths that predate by 2,000 years anything else that we've seen in terms of megaliths. So it's really sort of like turning the whole archaeological expeditions upside down in terms of what our early history was. Luckily, they haven't found any pottery yet, so it doesn't mess up when we started pottery, because they were sort of concerned about that it would really mess up the timelines. I met up, actually, thank you for unfortunately I don't have the names in front of them, but I met up with two friends and fans of the show. So I was actually in Istanbul, got to hang out for a few hours with a guy whose name I forgot to look up. I'm so sorry. And then also in, where the heck else was I? I was in Ankara. And also doing that. But I tell you, Turkey is rich in history. I have to go back in a few years when they have more of Göbekli Tepe opened up and a few other things also available. By the way, while I was at Göbekli Tepe, they were filming a documentary for a local I Travel Turkey show or whatever it was. And I just happened to be standing at the map for Göbekli Tepe. And I turned to the right because I heard one of the hosts walking away from me. And I looked straight over his shoulder and I saw a video camera pointing right at me. So I photobombed this poor show in Turkey. So I want my Turkish friends to go give me a video of that when it comes up on things. Just look for when they have Göbekli Tepe on that show. That'll be really fun. I also hope you all caught me on Coding 101 a few weeks ago. I had a great time with that, talking about my history, talking about how I got into programming. Hopefully it'll inspire other people to get into programming if it's so appropriate for that. And for my friends in Southern California, I am leaving tomorrow night to go back down there for a few weeks, working for my client there. So I'll be coming to you next week from ZipRecruiter, who's been paying my bills for a while now. I think that's all the plugging I want to do. What do you got to plug there, Gareth?
I'm going to go ahead and plug the same thing I plugged last time. It's the Texas Linux Fest. So it's a sister show of Scale. It's happening in Austin, Texas this year at the AT&T Conference Center, I believe. So the dates on that are June 13th through the 14th. So I would encourage everyone to go if you're in the area, because it's a volunteer-run, community-run show, and they do a great job.
Very cool, very cool. And I've been there, I think, a couple of years. Actually spoken there once, and had a great time. And so I would definitely encourage those of you who are in the Texas area or can get to the Texas area can go check that puppy out. I think that's all I've got for today. I think we're right out of time anyway. So until next week, we'll see. Until next week, we're going to see you again. Wait, that doesn't make any sense. I can never finish the show. I go away from the show for 3 weeks. I can't remember how to do this. We'll see you all again next time on FLOSS Weekly.